Welcome to today's episode of the Beautiful Business Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Bulpit. In today's episode, we're talking to Kelly Goodship, Managing Director of the Wow Company, an accounting firm I co-founded and led for nearly 20 years. Until 3 years ago, I handed over the reins to Kelly and a leadership team. We're going to reflect on that transition of leadership, what we've learned, what we could have done better, what went well. We're going to explore how WOW continues to evolve under Kelly's brilliant leadership. In this episode, you can expect insights on leadership succession, remote working, recruitment philosophies, and what the future holds for business done beautifully. Yours and my philosophy is we know we can't do a good job unless we're doing a good job by our people inside the business, and they're not going to do a good job by our clients if we don't look after those people outside the business, and probably have a broader sense of doing good in the communities and the world in which we operate.
Yeah, I would love it. One day maybe we have like the WOW Foundation or, something that means that we give back even more, to the community and maybe to people who need financial training or support, those things that we are naturally just really good at.
Welcome to the Beautiful Business Podcast from the Wow Company. If you're growing a UK business with a team of 8 to 80 people, you're in the right place. Every fortnight, we share honest conversations with brilliant business minds, exploring the realities of leadership, the challenges that come with growth, and the practical ideas that make a real difference. From purpose to profit, people to process, this is your space for fresh thinking and down-to-earth inspiration.
Kelly, welcome to the Beautiful Business Podcast. So excited to have you join us today.
Thanks. It seems very strange sat here on the podcast when I've listened to so many, but I'm excited for this.
Cool. Okay, so as you've listened to so many, you will know that the first question we ask all of our guests is, tell us something we don't already know about you or we can't find out on the internet.
This is really tricky. I'm not making an excuse as I start, but I'm a pretty open book and most things about me. So this is a bit of a challenge. When I was 14, I had my first Saturday job. So don't worry, no CV issues. I was still in education, but I worked in a hair salon on a Saturday, 9 till 2, £2 an hour. And I learned probably within my first half an hour of my trip in the hair salon. Number one, I didn't want to be a hairdresser. Number two, actually how hard work is and the value of money. And this won't surprise you, but this was my mum's doing. It was kind of brought up in an environment where you can get anything you want in life, but you have to work hard. So I did that. And other than a couple of months for a break while I was just finishing my dissertation and my degree, I've had a job ever since, at least one.
So 18 years in, you're now the managing director of the WOW Company. You stole my job from me a couple of years ago. When you took on the role of managing director, what were your hopes and dreams? And I suppose on the flip side, what were you worried about?
I was hoping for a challenge. When I took this job, I'd been here for 15 years. I could do pretty much everything with my eyes shut. So it wasn't like I didn't come to work and I didn't have a challenge, but I wanted like a new level of challenge, which I can confirm this absolutely has been. And I think from a fear point of view, you'd obviously handed over a company to me that was awesome, like that was working really well. And my fear, and to be honest, still kind of is a little bit, is that I'm never going to do as good a job as you and Pete did. So yeah, always was my fear from the one moment that I started, without question.
Do you think you still have that now?
I definitely do. Not as much. Like I've definitely learned to control that a little bit more. Or I'll just have like honest conversations with you sometimes, like help me out. I love you and Pete so much that I want to do the best job all the time and I want to continue to achieve the goals and objectives that we've set. So yeah, it does still hang around.
But from your perspective then, how do you reconcile that fear?
I kind of don't let it bottle up. So if I am worried about something, unfortunately for you, that tends to be a Thursday morning conversation where I will say, kind of help me, what would you do here? Or have I got this right? And if I'm really stressed about it, then I will ring you and say, can you talk about it? I think definitely in the early days, I just used to let it bottle up. And like anything, you let it bottle up and it becomes a much bigger problem than it was in the first place. But yeah, still, I just always I want to do a good job for you guys. And that still hangs around.
like anyone that knows you know that you're doing a better job. And I think what you'll find is some people listening to this will actually think she's crazy. She's doing a much better job than I ever did. So um, okay, so thinking back to that kind of like transition, I suppose to use a like sporting analogy, you went from like one of the players or captain of the team to the coach, right? Let's start with the positives. What was smooth? What went well with that transition?
So I feel very fortunate that I was obviously able to do a lot of bits of the job anyway. So it wasn't like I came in on day one, never been a WoW before, didn't understand the history, didn't understand the DNA of kind of like our makeup. So that was good. I think you're obviously around. So for me, it feels smoother because I can just talk to you about something. It isn't like, you finished on the 30th of June, I started on the 1st of July, and you've been sailing ever since kind of thing. So that was amazing. We kind of have a relationship where I can ask questions. And I think that really helps, feel kind of that smooth transition. It's not like I felt like, right, okay, Carl, this is now your job, crack on, and I can't ask you a question or a little bit of advice. So that's made it a bit easier.
Okay. So on the flip side then, what was hard about the transition? What were the toughest bits about transitioning into this role?
I don't want this to sound like woe is me, but honestly, that you were doing a good job. I think if you'd given me something that was like not failing, but something that just needed so much improvement, I would be starting from that level where I'm like, okay, I can do this, I can rectify it. But actually, like the company is cool, right? The company's been in a good situation. Is that a really poor excuse?
No,
Or
like kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because you're also coming at it from the inside. It's a business you've been part of. So I suppose the question probably front of my mind, and the question that lots of people listening will have, is how's it been with me sticking around? So you said like one of the benefits was that I was here, but you've got the guy who was doing the job before kind of still there. How on earth have you managed that?
Mm, so I think our relationship helps because I can pretty much talk to you about anything. So that does help. I think sometimes we had this conversation about something else the other day. If someone was on holiday, if you were on holiday, I just would make a decision and I just would crack on with it. I think sometimes I still feel like, what would Paul do? And if you're not here, I would take a guess what you would do and I would then run with it and I would make a decision. Whereas when you are here, I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to speak to you anyway. So I'm going to ask you, what would you do? And sometimes it means that I don't go with my initial decision of handling something. Now, in a lot of situations, that's a benefit, right? Because we probably come up with a cooler solution. But sometimes it does mean that I just chicken out a little bit because maybe I rely on you when I could just make a decision myself.
So do you think it's a bit like having a safety blanket?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you and I are in those situations, what is it that I normally say to you?
You're like a coach, aren't you? You're like, what would you do? Why would you do that? It's your questions that I love. Not always, but most of the time I really appreciate your questions. Or so you kind of help me try and come up with a conclusion or a different way of thinking for myself, which I really appreciate. And I know sometimes I'll say to you, can you just tell me? What do you think here? But it's definitely helped me grow and it's also helped me learn how I think you would react or what I think you would think of something rather than, if you just said to me, right, Kelly, I would do this, I think I just wouldn't learn quite as much. So I am grateful for that. Sometimes you're just so right and that's a bit infuriating, but generally I appreciate it.
I definitely want that clip taken out and shared on the whole internet. Sometimes you're always right. Like I can relate to that because on some levels it's like it's tough for me too, right? So there's this business that I built from nothing to this point, and then I'm effectively like handing it over to someone else. And there are many things that I think how I reconcile it in my head is actually here's someone who's bringing new perspective and actually able to do things better than I could have done, and that there's so many examples of you having done that. So I know, like with our clients, definitely people listening to the Beautiful Business podcast will also be in similar situations, either founders who are looking to like pass on control of the business, or like leaders within a business that are trying to take
Yeah.
control from a founder. If we were going to do this again, what advice would you have for us, but also any of these people listening? What advice would you give on how to navigate this situation?
It's such a good question, and you're gonna have to tell me if you agree with this in a minute. But I think if we had our time over again, so we go back to June, July of 22, I would have loved it if we put together a bit more of like a success plan. So if I look at this plan in 3 months' time, what would I have done that would have meant that I'd been successful 6 months, 12 months, maybe 2 years, like a period of time. Because what I've really learned is this role is pretty relentless, right? You're never done. You do one thing and then you move on to the next thing and the next thing. And it's really hard to just take a step back sometimes and think, okay, like, am I doing a good job? Like, am I doing maybe what you would have wanted and hoped that I would do? Am I doing the right thing for the business? So I definitely think I would ask you for that. And I'm not normally all about the details kind of person, but I'm like, can we just at least note something, something down here? And I also wished we'd worked out what my challenges are likely to be. So there are some things that you're being really polite about. You're like, look, you've done a really good job of that. There are some things that I still haven't nailed that you'd still do a much better job of than me. And I wish we just had, and like, this is me as much as it's both of us, right? But that honest conversation to go, right, Kel, like, what are your weaknesses? What are you likely to struggle with? What are we going to do about that? And I think then I think I would have felt slightly differently about some of the things that have gone wrong. I don't know. Do you agree, or is that a
Yeah,
bit woolly?
a little bit. I think a lot of the challenges that we faced like over that time, we couldn't have predicted. We couldn't have necessarily seen. Maybe there were blind spots. Like actually, the best thing that we did was just to get on and do it.
Well, we've never done it before, right?
No,
Yeah.
of course, but we could have planned this out for spent another 6 to 12 months planning this, and I'm not sure it would have made that big a difference. There's definitely bits that we could have planned. I think you did a brilliant job taking over the day-to-day running of the business, but we probably should have like looked more at the vision, longer term things. What direction did you want to take the business at that point? We were focused, I suppose, on more actually the running of the business. I think from my perspective, maybe um, something like we've talked about a lot is kind of like my struggle. So I enjoy being busy. I enjoy like the buzz of running a business, and then I need to kind of take a step back and finding that kind of like managing that tension between like being there for you and being useful and doing the bits that only I can do, but also not interfering, not getting in your way. But again, maybe we wouldn't have figured it out unless we'd have just jumped in and done it, to be completely honest.
I do think we did have some of those conversations in 22. I think we just didn't know, like you said, how it would turn out. And I think, I don't know, I feel like we have got a bit better at that recently. Do you? Do you feel like a bit
Massively,
easier?
massively, massively.
Oh, yeah.
And like got into more of a groove. And maybe it's just one of those things that takes time. I think the other observation I had was that I had the likes of you and Hannah and others, super capable operators working with me, and then you and Hannah kind of stepped up. Few others stepped up at the same time, but then there was this void of there wasn't like a you and Hannah and Dan beneath you, if you like. And I think that's something that maybe we should have addressed sooner.
Yeah. And obviously, we've done that quite recently, right? So I think maybe, yeah, to someone listening to this, it's like, what, not just this change that you want to make, but what does the future leadership look like? And what potential have you got in a team? What do you need to recruit for? But I don't know, I quite like us making mistakes because I think we're a much better company because we've made them. So some of them have been a challenge to navigate, right, along the way. But I wouldn't necessarily change any of it. I think how we work together now is largely born because of that. It just maybe would have been a bit more pleasant.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe do you know what? Maybe we've stumbled across something there. Like I think yours and my relationship is in my opinion is the main reason why this has worked. And actually, I completely trust that you and I will find a way to do that. And I suppose anyone listening, maybe that's the thing is like actually just having that relationship means that when challenges do come, we work through it. We work through it together.
Yeah, I guess it's like anything. You need the right people, right, to achieve pretty much anything. So if anyone's sitting there thinking, are they the right person to do that? Do I get on with them well enough to do that? Then the answer is probably no. Um, but yeah, I do have a newfound respect for how hard you worked. Like, if you'd said to me, "Do you work hard in 22?" I would have said to you, "Yeah, I absolutely work. Of course, I've got nothing more to give." And then you do this job, and actually, the challenge for me, which I never appreciated, and you might not have been the same, but it's impossible to switch off. Like, no matter, I'm a mum. Of course, I switch off. I'll go to football or whatever, but I still never switch off because in my mind, it's like, we've got commercial targets. Are the team happy? Are the clients happy? We've got a problem that needs fixing. Have we got enough cash in the bank? And you just dealt with that, and I did not. So yeah, that's probably been up there as well in one of those big learnings for me. That had we had our time over again, I mean, to be honest, if you told me that, I would have said, "It's fine. I already do that anyway."
Yeah, so I suppose like the context of our like handover might be something interesting to talk about in that we'd just been through COVID, and I think I was just completely shattered. And I suppose like the interesting bit in some ways was that it then took pretty much like three people or a mix of three people to come and take over what I'd been doing up until that point. What do you do to switch off?
I mean, look, I feel very fortunate that I've got a very busy house at home, and I like to be busy. So I think the fact that I have like young kids means that if I want to be a good mum, I have to, and I need to move from work mode into mum mode. So that really does help. But I also find just talking about things really help me. So if I've got something that's on my mind, I mean, my husband has to listen to it, but or you or somebody close to me, I will share whatever challenge I've got. And the saying, problem shared is a problem halved. And quite often for me, just to talk about it means that I can then just park it and right, I'm going to deal with it on Monday. And I've got a bit of a clearer plan about how I'm going to do that. I guess I was just conscious that I had no idea that that comes with this role. So probably to those people listening, like high five, because I had like this newfound respect for that weight that you carry on your shoulders that the team have no idea, right? None whatsoever.
Are you happy to talk about your support network?
So at work, we're a cool team at WoW, right? And obviously there are some people who are way more in my support network than others. So like Hannah's a really good example. Like always, no matter what kind of day I'm having, Han will know. But then we have like a much wider team of people at WoW that do know that, especially some of the people that have worked with us for a really long time. They know me well enough to know, am I happy today? Is there a problem today? They kind of just would know. So I've got really cool network at WoW. Obviously, I've got a coach, Kate, who's really cool. So I just have this agreement with her that anything that is a challenge for me in the month that doesn't need to be dealt with but could do with being discussed, I add it on the Kate list. And then once a month, I have a coaching session with her. And that's just, again, like I just go to town on this list. She asks quite often awesome but infuriating questions that make me realize that I've just been worrying about something that really was insignificant. We work out a plan and we move on. And then I've got a really cool network at home. Like, I'm really grateful for that. I'm really fortunate. Like, Graham's really cool. We're a really good team at home. My boys are boys. They have no real idea what's going on, like all is calm, which, I like kind of love that innocence at their age. So yeah, I think if I'm happy at home, and I'll often say this, right, we're a real family first team. And if I'm happy at home, then I can just bring a much calmer, more focused version of myself to work.
Yeah, I love that, and like thanks for sharing, because I think that support network's something that we've like learnt and developed, isn't it? And I think obviously some of those aspects be common with other people, but I think the point that you got a coach was a real turning point, because there was someone who was just there for you. They weren't emotionally invested in you from a home point of view nor a work point of view. Coach Kate's there just for you, and I think that's been um that's been really important.
Yeah, and I think anyone doing this role, like if you are new to it, then you should definitely try that. Because what I love about a coach is that she does understand me personally. She understands what's important to me. She's helped me work out what my personal values are. And as soon as I know that, how I make decisions changes, because, she really encouraged me to make a decision based on what I think and how I feel. And yeah, that's really helped me. Really, really been transformational.
Cool. So moving on a bit, one from my perspective, one of the bits that I think's stand out about what you've done over the last 3 years, and actually I know people from other organizations talk about, is your approach to people and culture. And one of those things that you, like, I think was there before, but you've been absolutely relentless with, is your mantra for hiring. So would you mind sharing with our viewers and listeners your mantra for recruitment?
Yeah, I can't even remember exactly how this started at Well. Probably born from the fact that bad recruitment decisions are just an absolute nightmare to deal with. And I would love nothing more than for us to never have to deal with them again. But yeah, we have this mantra at Well in our recruitment process. So it's a hell yes or it's a no. And in other words, unless when that feeling, I'm sure you had this 18 years ago when you interviewed me, that feeling of excitement, you need to work for us, cannot
Absolutely.
possibly wait. I'm joking.
Absolutely.
But like
Absolutely.
that feeling is so important. And so for me, that is that hell yes vibe. If I do not feel that way about somebody that I'm interviewing, then I'm not even going to bother because it's almost certainly not going to work. But what I think we've done really well over the last few years is that's not just my view. That's not just your view or Pete's view. That is a team view. So our recruitment process is obviously an online application. It's the first interview is like a personality assessment. Then it's a technical assessment for whatever that role might be. And then finally, it's like a second interview, and that is team specific. So it will include a couple of members of the leadership team, but then it will be, if you're applying to be a tax advisor, it will be with someone from the tax team payroll, someone from the payroll team. And those guys fill out a feedback form when they're done. And it will say, what do you think is the strengths, the weaknesses, the challenges? And then that final question, which is, in your opinion, is this person a hell yes or a no? And honestly, a couple of months ago, someone in the team brought that out and said, they're not a hell yes, so they need to be a no, but I can't tell you why they're not. And I was so excited with that because I was like, I think previously, years ago, we would have gone, no reason to say no to this person. So it's a yes from me. And as soon as we've spun that on its head, like we have still made wrong decisions, but we've never had anybody who hasn't passed their probation that we wouldn't recruit again, if that makes sense. They would undoubtedly like pass the recruitment process with flying colours. So yeah, I'm quite excited. And now it's everywhere. The team love it.
Yeah, and like I also know people from other organisations have also like adopted the hell yes or no, and I think what it's done is it's also helped us like bring in like a diversity of talent, because you're not just looking for people like us or people we like or someone who's good enough or can definitely do a job. We're looking for people that we're excited about what they can bring to the organisation, and I think some of the people that you've brought in over the last couple of years are, well, I'm not sure that if I was going through the recruitment process today at Wow that I'd get a job. So
I wouldn't either, which I often joke with Mandy and Blaine about. But I think that's the key, right? We need to continue to recruit people better than ourselves because we're never going to grow this business to where we want to be if we don't. So yeah, no, we often do laugh in the team now. I wouldn't pass my own recruitment process now, but hey, people do, and we've, like you said, we've had some really cool additions to the team.
yeah, cool. So thanks for that. One of the other challenges we faced over the last 3 years, maybe slightly longer, going back to 2020, is that Wow is now a fully remote organization. We going into COVID, we had 3 offices, and to cut a long story short, no one, even people that live walking distance from our offices, didn't want to go back to the offices after COVID. And then another thing happened, which was we realized we could hire people who were not from a commutable distance from the office, and we started being able to hire some really great people. And at some point, I'm not sure when, we just decided to close the offices altogether and become a fully remote organization, which is great, comes with lots of benefits such as recruitment. We've got people working in Grenada, Malta, a bit closer to home,
All parts of the UK.
Scotland, yeah,
Yeah.
all over the UK, Scotland, Wales. But that obviously comes with its own challenges from a leadership perspective. So, like, over your tenure over the last 3 years, what have you learned about leading a remote organization, and what are the things that you prioritize as a leader?
I've learned that you can still build relationships. I think I still love to hang out with the team face to face, and we do that 4 times a year minimum, right? Via our play days. We still have in-person summer parties, Christmas parties. I don't think that will ever change. I think if anything over time, I'd love it if we could do more of those things, maybe smaller, small things. Like you're obviously going up to Liverpool to see some of the team. Like I love that. And I think if we can do a few more of those things, I think it's only gonna help us. But like we just have a really good team of people that love and thrive on that connection. But again, I think if we recruit the right people and they want to spend time with each other, nobody at WOW sits there in complete silence all day and doesn't interact with anybody else. Like all the time, there is a reason and a need, whether it's a client or whether it's the team, and they, they'll throw a social on a Friday morning because Harry's created a quiz. Like I love that.
So I think with the remote culture, it just needs to be a bit more thought through, a bit more planned, a bit more deliberate. Whereas you can walk into an office and there's that the serendipity, there's the chance encounters, there's the bumping into people in the kitchen, or I think also as a leader, you just get a read on how people are doing a lot easier by looking around the office. There's so many tells, body language, how people move.
It's so true, isn't it? And you just see this part of somebody, and that seems fine. And it, like you said, and it's just for an hour or sometimes for 10 minutes. I would always prefer to talk to the team on a video call rather than on the phone, because I do think that helps a little bit. I don't know, but you and I, like, it wouldn't be the same if we had a telephone call every week, right? You can tell a lot. And I think the more that you know somebody, the better that becomes. But yeah, you're so right. It is really tricky.
How do you know how we're doing with the team?
So I've got an obsession with Office Vibe. I think I've mentioned this before, maybe at a couple of events that I've done, but we use Office Vibe, and there are loads of alternatives. And I'm so obsessed now with Office Vibe. I'm not sure I confess this. I came back from holiday Easter, and the first thing that I did wasn't check my emails, wasn't read my Slacks, it was to open Office Vibe, because it's so telling, right? And if the team are happy, then everything just seems to be so much calmer. Company wide.
Yeah, so for anyone listening, like Office Vibes, a tool that we use for regular pulse surveys of our team, goes out once a fortnight. Everyone across the business completes it. I think, what's our current participation rate, Kelly?
Oh, I think it's 99. Annoyingly, I like to think it's because somebody's on holiday.
So across the 60-person organisation, we've got pretty much everyone completing these short surveys, and then that serves up information to you. Or to the leadership team running the business. What have you learned from those surveys?
I think what I've learned is that we're so much better to know than not. If you know about something, even if it's that you just sense, sometimes it'll just give me a sense that somebody's just maybe not as happy as we would like them to be in our tax team, for example. It then gives me those tools to go, right, I'm going to go and find out. Like, because if you deal with it sooner rather than later, it's just a small thing you fix and you move on. You leave it and it festers, and then the team talk to each other, and then other people become annoyed about something, and it becomes this really big thing. It's just an absolute nightmare to deal with.
I think it's just that regular thing. I've like worked with other organisations where they don't survey their people at all, and it's done anecdotally. I remember one business, they were doing once every 2 years they were surveying their team. How can you, the beauty we have is we have it as our fingertips. We can see what we're doing well. So I suppose probably the challenge that you and I have with it is, by any other measure, we score really high, really well, but your eye's always drawn to that like one metric that's dipped a little bit this month or this quarter, but really just that immediacy of feedback and being able to pinpoint different areas where we can improve's been brilliant. And also being able to go back to the team and say, look, we got this feedback, this has been a consistent bit of feedback in Office Vibe, and here's what we've listened, and here's what we're doing about it. So I think it's been a great a great tool for us as leaders, hasn't it?
I honestly can't imagine life without it. I think what it's also taught me is that you can't please everyone all the time. Like all you can do is take the information that you've got, you can do your best work with it, you can try and make a change, but you can't make people happy and you can't make them love their job. Whereas bizarrely, I think before this became a stats and a statistics and a thing behind it, I would have been like, of course you can. Everyone can always be happy at work. But and that's really helped me deal with that. So I'm a lot more logical now when I look at this. Okay, great bit of feedback. We definitely need to change that. Let's go and do it. Let's involve the people that have shared it. But actually, I can't make you love it.
Yeah, and also great
Yeah.
feedback on all the stuff that we're doing well, right? Because there'll always be stuff that needs working on, but also good to have the clarity on the areas that we are winning from a like internal team culture perspective.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of bits in there that like stick more with me than others. I don't know about you. So there are some things that I like to look in there, like what's the wellness level of the team? What's the relationship with their managers? Those kind of things. I'm like, okay, like, are the team okay in themselves?
Yeah, of course. So for example, one of the bits of feedback we had was that we could do better at giving feedback to each other internally. So so we ran some feedback workshops to help improve that. Just really, really, really simple things that maybe we wouldn't have prioritized, we wouldn't even have known about
I was going to say, we
otherwise.
wouldn't have even known that the team wanted it, would we? Like, no chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what there's a lot we do in terms of our like culture at Wow, but what's one thing, if you could put your finger on one thing that we do that you're really proud of with our team that really helps them thrive?
One thing. Uh, Probably like our family first approach. I think we give the team the chance to bring, and I always want this to be the case, their whole selves to work. They come as their natural self. And if something's not right at home and they need to deal with that, then please go do it. There is nothing more important in life. And I'm a firm believer that if everything is, you've got a happy home and you bring your whole self to work, and then everyone wins. And that is just like the team know that. Like there's absolutely no question. They wouldn't need someone to come to me to say, "Oh, I've told so and so to finish early because their kids unwell. Is that okay?" No, like, of course it's fine. Like that's what you should do.
Like the work we're doing here is important. Your role looking after our clients is important, but actually at this time your number one job is to be there for your family. And I think since we've been more explicit about that, we've gained so much more than it's cost us as a organization.
Yeah, I remember someone saying to me once, like, "Oh, doesn't that just mean that people don't work enough or like they don't have more?" Like, no, I genuinely believe that people give more, do more, bring more to work because they are grateful for that and they love that. So I think, yeah, the whole time you and I are around, like that is gonna absolutely stick, isn't it?
For anyone listening to this that's trying to build or develop their culture, certainly kind of I'd say our ethos, especially your ethos, is very much people first, right? I think we have like a clear view that we can't build anything great unless we've got great people. We talk about the Jim Collins thing about having the right people on the right people on the bus in the right seats. Uh, what advice would you give to someone listening to this that's looking to either develop their culture or transform the culture within their organization?
It would be two things. One would be to have the right people in the team. I think if you've got the right people, as you said there, like Jim Collins, if you've got the right people on the bus and hopefully in the right seats, I genuinely believe that, wow, we can achieve anything we want with that. And I think in order to build that kind of culture, if you've got somebody who is a kind of culture killer or a hero, as we sometimes would call them, I think it just makes that job even harder. So I think it's that. And then I think secondly, it would be really believing in yourself that that's what you want to do. Like for you and I, there was no question. That is exactly what we want to achieve at WoW. And I think we still get it wrong sometimes, still make mistakes, but I think even the team are quite often forgiving of those because they know that we always will have the best intentions. So yeah, I mean, there's no question. I believe 100% that that's the right thing to do, and there's no compromise. Like we will do it.
My observation is since you've taken over, you've done such a great job at that, making sure we've got the right people on the bus in the right seats. I think before, the guy that was in charge before.
I need to be careful what I say. You recruited me, but yeah, it's
Well, no, I'm not saying the guy before got it all wrong, but there were certainly cases where you think, "Oh, do you know what? I'm just gonna give this person an extra couple of months, or maybe I can try a bit harder. Maybe it's my fault." And actually, you've been really great at doing the right thing and making sure we've got the right people on the bus.
We have still made mistakes though in the last 3 years, so just remind yourself of that. Like we've not nailed that.
My favorite thing that I've told to anyone who listen, I heard this Japanese proverb, and I can't actually recite the proverb in Japanese, but the translation goes something like this: that if you, and this is about decision making in general, but also works for recruitment, if you get on the wrong train, the longer it takes you to get off the train, the more it's going to cost you.
It's so true, and it applies to everything, right? Not even just recruitment, but the number of times that we've gone, "Oh, I'm not sure we've made the right decision there. How bold are we gonna be?"
So we talked a lot about people and culture there. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about was our clients, and I think when you came into WoW 18 years ago, one of the things that you just did naturally because you couldn't help yourself was to transform
Mm.
our client experience. The service that our clients got just transformed, and you led by example. And even as a graduate 18 years ago, you in your happy way kicked and screamed and dragged the rest of the organization with you, and you've continued to set the standard. We talked about the office vibe and the data we get for office vibe, but something you've also that we did do before, but sporadically. One of the changes you've made is we now quarterly survey our clients and do the net promoter score with our clients. What do you why has that been so important to you? What have you gained as a leader from doing that quarterly, and what's changed?
I would say, a bit like I was saying earlier from a people point of view, I used to worry. I used to panic that this survey was going out. I now see this as an opportunity for us to learn, develop, and do better. Like, I know most of the time we do an amazing job. I also know that we're just human and we're going to make mistakes and we need to put things right. And by us giving the opportunity to ask clients for that feedback, they're not sat there getting really, really annoyed and frustrated that it's taken us so long to fix something or for them to express an opinion. We're asking them for it. And actually, in a couple of situations, probably a few more than that, we now have a better relationship with clients because they've aired a frustration on something. We've taken that frustration, we've rectified it. And, sometimes the client will fill the survey in and the other one will fill it and say, I love it when you ask me for feedback because I know you'll make the change. And that inside excites me so much because there's nothing more annoying than filling out a survey. You've probably done it, right? Where you're like, oh, I'm wasting my efforts here because nothing's going to change. It will always change. Sometimes we're a bit slower because things are a little bit more complex, but generally, like, we're on it if someone shares feedback. And I think as well, it's really nice for the team to see the positive things that come in because it's so easy for us to spend our time and focus on what's not right and what a client would like us to change and would like us to do differently. But the clients say amazing things about the team, and we're now a lot better at really quickly sharing that feedback when it comes in, sending it out, and I don't know, love it. So I do still get a little bit nervous, but general consensus is I'm excited. It's that time of the year again where the next one's going up.
Because the nervousness, the anxiety comes from, oh my god, what if everyone who completes this like hates us and says we're rubbish and everything? Well, even so that never happens. But even if that did happen, at least we'd know. We get about 15% of our client base complete it, so we think that it's statistically relevant. And like in that, we'll probably get one or two of that number. We'll get one or two kind of could do betters, frankly. But the rest, the vast majority, are rating us 9 or 10 out of 10. But actually, even from the 9s and 10s, we get sort of like feedback and ideas on how we can do better. But being able to go to our team and say, look, you're appreciated, you're valued, we've got this bit right. And here's the beauty of it is the pointers of what we can do next. Have you got any examples? Could you give us like one example of something that's come up in one of the NPS surveys and as we've then implemented into our client's experience?
Honestly, there's one that it's still, and this was a while ago now, but it still frustrates me that I hadn't thought about this. So at WoW, we use a help desk for all of our emails. we've used it for years and years, and it's been amazing, right? In terms of us meeting our SLAs, in terms of us supporting team when they're on leave or they're ill. But also it's really good to allow like collaboration between teams. So if a client's got a query and it, involves a different expertise.
So just to explain the help desk thing there, what it means is that no emails get lost. If you've ever emailed your accountant or solicitor or any other advisor and you have to wait weeks or sometimes you never hear back, like we can guarantee, because we have visibility over that, we can make sure that doesn't happen. We can also make sure it gets to the right person, and through a triage process, we know if this is something that we need to jump on now in the next hour or two.
We have something at WOW called our WOW voice. So they would receive an email from you and me, and they would be written slightly differently, but they are very much in line with how we operate. But what this specific client had given feedback on was that, and they'd had like a really tough time, as a lot of business owners have no doubt, had a really tough time. And they basically filled it out and said that they really didn't like the help desk because they felt like when they sent confidential emails in, almost like they were airing their dirty laundry. And when someone writes something, I just read it and I was like, we're changing it this week. Like, what can we do differently? And now we have this really cool feature where if a client puts confidential in the subject line, it almost bypasses the standard system. It gets rerouted to a really small group of people in our client services team that will read it and will track down the relevant person. So if you'd sent an email in and said, look, Kelly, I'm really struggling with my cash flow. I could really do with some help. Like, it's keeping me awake at night. The team would track me down and would say, Kel, you need to call Paul and you need to help him. Or if I was on holiday, you clearly still need that help and support, and they would then find someone else that you're used to dealing with. So we changed it really quickly, but it's something so small that as soon as someone says that to you, you're like, oh, I'm really annoyed that I even hadn't thought about this before. But that client was instrumental in us. We went back to them, we trialed it, they helped us, they gave us feedback, we made a change.
Looking ahead to the future now, what's next for WOW, and what are you most excited about for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few things on my list, but I'm really excited for us to continue to grow. We've always had that as a goal at WOW. And I'm a really strong believer that the better and the more we grow as a business, the more opportunities that we give the team. And I'm really grateful because I know I certainly wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've had over the last 18 years if we hadn't been growing. So always on that like growth trajectory is like a massive part of like what motivates me in the morning. So yeah, that is our number one. I don't know. Do you agree with me? Would you add something?
Yeah, and I think that growth is part of the journey, isn't it? It's not necessarily that we're trying to grow to a certain point. We've got a thing, we talk about building a forever business, but actually that growth is part of sustainability and sustaining, not standing still. I think like one thing, like I know it's a hot topic at the moment. Probably everyone's talking about it. Is definitely AI, but I think what we're finding is it's making like a measurable difference. This isn't something we're not saying, oh yeah, AI is going to change our business in the future. It's changing our business now, I'd say. We've developed a tool to help us better serve our clients, and feels like this is like just the beginning. If you think in terms of like my vision for WOW, if you like, is that we've just got humans doing that which only humans can do. And what we've noticed really in the last 12 months, I'd say, is increasingly a load of the stuff that humans were doing, they're now not having to do. And what that means is that the level of service, the level of expertise we can deliver is that much better, because a lot of the frankly mundane stuff, we're using like technology to do the heavy lifting, and just thinking that if this is just the beginning, like where is this going to go, and how can our use and adoption of technology transform how we serve our clients, how we work together, how we develop our people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's more than just AI. I think it's technology for us in general. I always want to make sure that we're using the best technology, but not just using it, but like we're forward thinking and we're looking ahead. And to be honest, at times I found that really difficult because I'm like, there is just so many, so much here. But yeah, I'm excited for what technology is going to mean for us. And like you said, I think the team, those mundane tasks are quite often the ones that the team don't want to do either. So it's just a kind of a bit of a no-brainer for me. It brings a better people experience as well as it builds us a better business for the future.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is something that not really something we've talked about. I wonder if it's something you've thought of. Is like we pride ourselves in being a beautiful business. What do you think this all means for Wow or a beautiful business in 10 years' time? How will a beautiful business be different in 10 years' time? Do you think?
I mean, what I hope it will mean is that it's more and more about like that people and the relationships and the service. And part of that is born from the fact that that's what I know we're good at. But I do think that is the future. Like if I think of other services or businesses that I love, that I think provide a good service, it's always the people, and it's the relationships that you build. So yeah, for me, I'm really hoping.
Yeah, I think so. The example that I gives of like the eye surgeon. So uh, a robot can give a patient diagnosis in a fraction of a second, more accurately, more consistently than the best eye surgeon or surgeons in the world can do. But the bit that the eye surgeon can do that the robot can't is see how the person walks into the room and understand their circumstance and tailor a treatment plan to their circumstances and really do that human bit. And I think our the the benefit we have going into this is that we've always prioritized relationships and connections and that real like humanness. uh and maybe this is a controversial thing to say, but I have no joy or love of preparing sets of accounts. It's a means to an end to help people build businesses, right? So if we can have technology doing all the heavy lifting for us and we're there to do the human bit, to have those relationships, that connection, um just like genuinely not been more excited about the future of our business than I am at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was obviously an accountant, or I am one for a long time, and actually preparing those year-end accounts was not my favorite thing to do, as you know. But going to see a client, have a conversation with them, helping them build their businesses, is what used to excite me. And then as soon as you know who they are personally and you know what they're trying to achieve and you know a little bit about their family, it just changes that dynamic of advice. And I think that's something that technology is not going to be able to do. And I might be a little bit biased, but certainly not to the standard that we can do that.
So one thing that we did years ago was to write an imagined client testimonial from like the future, what we'd want people to say. What would you want either sort of like people working for Wow, people outside of Wow to say about Wow in 10 years time? You'd have been running the business for 13 years at that point. You have a big party. What would you want people to say about Wow at that point?
I mean, I love it now, but I would love us to be like world famous for the service that we offer. Almost to the point where, like we had a waiting list. We can't possibly service all of these clients because our reputation just speaks for itself. And there is nothing that excites me more than like, right, what do we need to do? How do we make that happen? And I guess similarly with like recruitment, if we could get to the point where we had such a reputation for our people experience that, and I mean, to be fair, we've made massive inroads in this, but, like people just come to us and like, I want a job, I want a job, I want a job. And we just, yeah, life's easy to pick the best.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's almost sort of like self-fulfilling as as that great. That's really cool. That's what I don't know if this is questions fair or not, but what would you hope people would say about you in 10 years' time about you as a leader and your leadership style and how you've led?
Mm, I actually hope they would probably say similar things now, but appreciate I need to make some progress on that. For me, it's like it's all about the relationships. I want to be that leader that was like approachable, kind, and I know that doesn't mean nice. I genuinely do mean kind in that, but gave them opportunities and prioritize what was important first. You know me. It's the people side of that I want to pass someone in the street. But I'm like that now. Like if I bumped into somebody at a weekend with their parents out for dinner, I would I'd be like, okay, I hope their parents would have that view of us. Yeah, that really like that's what my goal is. I'm working on it as much as
Yeah,
possible.
no, I'm sure. I'm like, do you know, I'm sure they would, and that connection bit's really really interesting. We a couple of months ago we had the Olympic rowing gold medalist Tim Foster on the podcast. He's now a leadership coach, head of performance for the League Managers Association. And we had a really interesting conversation. One of the things that came out of that conversation was all about trust and creating an environment of trust. And I think that's one of my observations of working with you. Is that something that you do naturally, that specifically that environment of trust that you create? Is that something you do naturally, or is that something that you've thought about and cultivated?
It's a really good question. So trust is just something I give. Like as far as I'm concerned, if we've recruited the right person, there's no reason why we wouldn't trust them. And I will say to quite often any new member of the team, from a connection point of view, you need to earn the trust of our clients, but you will have the trust in the team. Like the team will trust you. Your challenges, you've got to keep it. And that is very much my approach, not just at work, but in life. Like I just think life's too short to just be really skeptical of people all the time. Like I trust you, keep it. And look, I appreciate that there's a different level of trust the longer that you've worked with somebody or the longer that you've known someone, of course. But I just think it's so much more pleasant in life to just have granted that trust and let people do their best work and behave in their best way. But I know that might seem a bit crazy, but
No. Interesting. So, I think we're more or less out of time. So, thank you for coming on the podcast. I know you've got a gazillion things on and taking time out to do this. We're really grateful. I'm really grateful. I've enjoyed talking to you. We've just got a couple of closing questions that I know you'll have heard a million times because you listen to the podcast every fortnight. So all around beautiful business. So number one, what to you? What does beautiful business mean to you, Kelly?
yeah, I mean, obviously, I've heard a lot of different definitions of this, and I'm fascinated by the different types of definitions that we get. For me, it's just a business. It's really simple. It's just a business that isn't in it to solely make money. I want us to have a reputation for experiences, for people, for support. And I'm a real firm believer that if your team are happy and the clients are happy, you'll grow. You'll be a beautiful business. You'll nail it. So yeah, that would be mine. I've never asked you though. What's it mean for you?
Good, very, very good question, and I have answered this on a previous podcast. But I wanted to come back to you on one thing. So you said it's not all about making money. Um, what? How do you reconcile that need to, like, we need to make money to sustain, right, and to be able to grow? How do you reconcile like the profit and the purpose piece of the equation?
That's a really good question. I think, look, we're really fortunate. We employ a lot of finance people. So I do have a slight advantage there. The team advise clients that you're never going to be able to do the things that invest in the areas you want to invest in if you don't make money. Like, of course, it's not sustainable. So I think for me, that's kind of how we go about that at WOW. It's just making sure that we bring the team along. They know what our goals and what our plans are for the future, what we do want to invest in. And then obviously they can benefit from that, see the fruition of that, and that's just a cycle, isn't there?
And would you be explicit about the need to make money, or is that something that you keep hidden, or how do you go about that?
No, I would definitely be explicit, and I actually think we probably can be more explicit. I don't know if you agree. I think it's all our commercial. We're very open about our commercial performance at WOW, and I wouldn't want that to change. I think the more open you are, the more honest you are, it's easier to bring people along with you. But we can definitely do a better job of that. But yeah, it's
I think it's something that everyone wrestles with. And so to go back and answer your question, what do I think beautiful business is? We've obviously got the Beautiful Business Manifesto that I wrote. I don't know how many years ago.
I still share that with every new recruit at WOW.
10,
Still,
10, 15 years ago. But I think the bit that's come out of our conversation today, and the thing that means the most to me is just about being people centric. We know, like yours and my philosophy is, we know we can't do a good job unless we're doing a good job by our people inside the business, and they're not going to do a good job by our clients if we don't look after those people outside the business, and probably have a broader sense of doing good in the communities and the world in which we operate.
yeah, I would love it. One day maybe we have like the WOW Foundation, or something that means that we give back even more, to the community. And maybe to people who need financial training or support, you know, those things that we are naturally just really good at. Like, that would excite me. It's making sure that we have time to work on stuff like that. That's the challenge when you're running a business, isn't it?
As well. Yeah.
So yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and final question then. What advice would you, if you got one piece of advice for anyone listening to this on how to build a beautiful business?
Yeah, and I think it's probably going to be a bit obvious when people listen to this, but for me, like I said earlier, I feel like, wow, we can do anything we want with the right people on our bus. So for me, yeah, that one bit of advice would be, if you've got the right people with the right beliefs that live and breathe your values, and you've recruited them for that way, you're not going to struggle. Like, it'll be a lot easier to do.
Amazing. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. I've loved the conversation. I loved having you on the podcast. Hope everyone else enjoys listening to some of the stories about how how you stole my job, and
How we've kind of managed to fumble our way through this
and
and do our best work.
and how we muddled through it and made it look like we meant it.
Yeah.
But also there's been some like real gems in there about like your approach to people and culture, and I think your passion for people, whether that's people inside WOW or our clients, like really shines through. I'm sure anyone who's worked with you will tell you you're doing a much better job than the guy before you. So well done, and thank you so much.
Thank you too. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Beautiful Business Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, then please remember to subscribe and leave us a review. For more advice and practical tips on what it's really like to build a beautiful business, visit our content hub at wowco.uk/hub, or check out the link in the show notes.